Good morning. Welcome to St. Vinnie's podcast. Today we're sitting down with our SVdP team, Supportive Services for Veterans Families. We have Foster Martinez, our program director, Zach Goodenough, program manager, and then Melvin Niles, our assistant program manager. And this is the team that serves, along with a couple of other folks, of course, that serves our veterans here, and that's a really extraordinary honor that we get to be a part of. If we could introduce ourselves, I gave your names, but you all have your own experience. How long have you been with St. Vincent de Paul? And then what's your role here, what that looks like? Foster, you want to get us started?
Sure. My name is Foster Martinez. I've been with the agency since 2017, and I came up in the Supportive Services Veteran Families program, and in 2020 became the Supportive Housing Director, and been running that department for 2 years and I think 17 days, but who's counting?
Right.
Yeah. And currently administer DHS, VA, and HUD housing programs within our department.
So that umbrella of supportive housing programs, DHS, HUD, and then of course the veteran side of things. That's a pretty broad umbrella that you steward, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Who is this right here?
And this is our department mascot, Millie the Poodle. And we inherited her from the previous housing director, Ms. Ann Williams. And it's been an honor to take care of her and love her ever since. We are peanut butter and jelly, as they say.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, I'm glad Millie could join us today as well. Thank you. Zach, how long have you been with SVdP?
I've been here more than 2 years now.
Okay.
So came on right at the front end of COVID-19. My 2 weeks in between leaving sponsors and coming over here coincided with the lockdowns we were doing in Wayne County, and then I exited my home to start a new job here, helping with the SVdP program.
Quite a year of transitions.
It was
The
quite a
world,
time
but
to-
for you as well, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Quite a time to start a new job, and especially in the social service realm.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Melvin, how long have you been on staff here?
Well, I started here at St. Vincent de Paul SVdP as a case manager in 2020.
Okay.
So I've been here for 2 years, just a little bit over 2 years. This last winter, I was promoted to assistant program manager. My experience with veterans or in the social support services goes a little bit farther back. I have some time at the relief nursery working for the Veteran Treatment Court. And that's what really kind of pushed me forward to work with veterans. I'm a veteran myself, and that was the first opportunity I had to work with veterans, and I found out this is something I'm really passionate about.
Beautiful. How did your experience as a veteran really inform your decision to then work with veterans?
Well, I was deployed to Iraq, so Army medic, deployed to Iraq, and when I returned, I was one of those soldiers that felt like, since I have all my arms and legs, I'm not really injured, I'm fine. Through my experience returning from Iraq, getting married, getting a job, I had some challenges, and I'm able to share those challenges with other veterans. What did I do? How did I go through the process? When did I realize, hey, maybe I have some invisible wounds as well? How do I share that with other veterans?
It's beautiful. Thank you for your service, by the way.
Thanks, Dan.
And then Zach, I know that you also have some experience with the military. How did that lead to your choice to then serve veterans?
Came up here to graduate from UO, graduated using the GI Bill as a sociology major. A friend from class was working at sponsors at that time, and they just happened to need a veteran GPD case manager. Interviewed for it, got it, and I think for me, it's still service, right? The military was service in one way. This is still service to the community in another. And I think the veteran identity, whether it's Melvin or myself or other veterans we have on the team that lived life experience I think translates to better connection, better trust, and just kind of fosters, no pun intended, better, I don't want to say better, but kind of a specialized understanding, which I think translates into service delivery.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's, when I first started college, it was, I need to go get a business marketing degree and make six figures, and then along the way, it became more of a, I want to, the Marine Corps for me, was something I wanted to do since second grade. Was the earliest I remember, telling somebody I was going to join the military. So I knew what I was going to do. There was the sense of purpose and meaning, commitment, spirit de corps, and then after the military, like a lot of veterans do, kind of lost that, and it was kind of like, what do I do with my hands now? So for me, this is something that provides meaning and purpose, sense of fulfillment, all while helping the community where I live at. So right in your own backyard.
Kind of get that trifecta. Helps you, helping veterans, and helping your community at large.
And I'm a big believer in veterans helping veterans. So.
That's wonderful. You both touched on or alluded to kind of the hidden wounds that sometimes come out of military service, not so obvious and visible to the eye. What unique challenges do our veterans come out of the military with that you're able to support with here?
Well, Tabitha, wounds are different for each individual. I can give an example, a recent example. We have a veteran that returned from Afghanistan deployment, and when he gets back, his family is reporting that he's different, he's changed. How does that reflect for that veteran in the community? Veteran is using alcohol to self-medicate, so we come in contact with that veteran, homeless, without direction, and we use the Housing First model, and we house that veteran and try to put some other supports in place for that veteran. So now we've housed that veteran, and this veteran is engaged with mental health services. There's a big change there. It's a big drastic change in just a couple of months. In a housing unit, kind of relearning how to take care of yourself, and then once engaged with mental health services, now this veteran has a superbly clean room. It's dress right dress. It's military, dress right dress. It's fantastic. And the veteran has a long way to go. There's more progress that needs to be made, but yeah, that's some of the experience that we have with veterans with possible PTSD.
So it sounded like a combination of, and please tell me if I'm wrong, a combination of the experience that veteran has in the service. When they come back, there's a combination of maybe what do I do with myself? I had this great purpose, this team I knew what I was a part of. And then combining that with the family not having had any of those experiences, not understanding the changes that veteran may have come back with. So is it the combination of those two pieces that really brings the unique challenges for our veterans?
Yeah, and I think things can stack up. I know, for myself and, other Marines I served with that, sometimes you don't always enter the military from the best living situations to begin with. So, you're coming into an environment that you're potentially adding more trauma or more experiences on top of. At least when I was in, mental health and talking about one's emotions weren't exactly at the forefront of.
You guys don't talk about that all the time?
Not the Marine Corps infantry.
Okay.
So a lot of four-letter words thrown around and in place of that.
Instead of talking about the feelings.
Exactly. So and then you get out. Transition stress. So there's been papers that talk about the deadly gap between military and kind of starting the next thing, kind of in that gray area between I just got out, I just got home, maybe I landed in a community where I don't have people I feel that I can relate to, maybe there's not friends or family members I feel comfortable talking to about my experience, and then I'm not comfortable reaching out for services, asking for help, admitting that I need help, and that can be a lot to deal with. Veteran suicide rates are still high. drug use, mental health, drug use on top of mental health, domestic violence. There's a whole slew of things.
Those are all pieces that you could come out of the military with, but the military service isn't a magic wand either. You might be coming in with some adverse childhood experiences, various traumas, or unhealthy coping mechanisms, and those don't go away magically, and it sounds like they can in fact be exacerbated, compiled with that military service. And you called it the deadly gap? Is that the...
Not my term. It was a paper I cited recently for one of my classes. But yeah, they referred to it as the deadly gap, that year or two, post-military, that high propensity for things to go wrong.
So 1 to 2 years after military service, there's a distinct gap. What kind of services are available in our community, or do we prioritize maybe getting to folks in that time frame? What does that look like? What are those resources? So now that we've identified there's a huge gap there, we lose a lot of men and women during that season. What do we do as a country for those men and women?
The VA offers a full suite of services. We are one of those services. So the St. Vincent de Paul Supportive Services for Veteran Families is a grant that Foster applies for every year. Thank you for taking care of all the paperwork, Foster.
Favorite part of your job, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He loves it. But yeah, we are able to assist low-income veterans, so they have to be less than 50% area median income. Each county has their own area median income set forth by HUD. That's one of the eligibility pieces. They have to be, we have to verify veteran status, so we can serve everything except dishonorable or bad conduct general discharges. And then HUD's definition of literally homeless, you're about to become literally homeless. So literally homeless is the bread and butter of the program. That's where the majority of the funding is supposed to go to. That is, I'm living in my car and I'm going to UO using the GI Bill, but I don't have enough money to get into a place up here. That's tent camping on West 11th or Washington Jefferson Park. About to become literally homeless, but for our assistance, that's homeless prevention. So that's, hey, I'm leased up somewhere. Maybe that unexpected expense popped up. I had to go put some new tires on the car unexpectedly, and then I wasn't able to make rent, and it just kind of snowballed from there, and now I'm facing an eviction. So those are the two main tracks in the program.
So we are the service gap. We are what our country has designed to serve those veterans in that 1 to 2 year period. That's awesome. I didn't realize that.
Say so. Kind of Iraq and Afghanistan had been going on a bit. This program came about in 2010, 2011 as a more or less, to your point, a triage response to, hey, we have a lot of veterans that are on the street, and we need to do something about this. So since the program's inception, we've about halved the unhoused veteran population, not just us alone, but working with the VA and the community partners and across the country. So right now there's 260 plus SSVF grantees across all 50 states and a couple U.S. territories.
So in the 10 years that this program has existed in our nation, you're saying we've halved that disparity. That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
And if I remember correct, Foster, this came to St. Vincent de Paul through Ann Williams' work. How did that come about? She was a rock star, from what I understand.
She was a rock star.
I did not get to meet her. She passed away in 2020. But how did St. Vincent de Paul end up with this amazing contract and service in our community?
Ms. Williams she wanted to focus on veteran homelessness within her family and life existence. It was something dear to her. And in 2010, she had already been running the HUD and DHS programs. She saw the FOFA for SSVF, applied for it, and then quickly obtained our grant per diem contract, which is transitional housing. And then through a capital grant, she was able to purchase the 3 vet lift apartment buildings, in which today the 3 of us have the honor of continuing that legacy. So we are the veteran emergency response in Lane County through St. Vincent de Paul. Zach and Melvin also support our local VA And then we also administer funds on behalf of those teams. And when a veteran presents in Lane County through our multiple arms, if you will, avenues, through that coordination with the county, Zach and Melvin are able to assist the veteran with transitional housing, emergency shelter, rapid rehousing, and permanent supportive housing.
Wow.
Yes.
That's quite the safety net.
Yep. And since then, it's my responsibility to administer the federal funds responsibly and adhere to all the administrative rules. And then from there, Zach and Melvin implement those programs and really support their team to meet the performance metrics for grant renewals. And I can say that this current SSVF squad is amazing. They make my grant renewal jobs easy.
That's awesome.
Yes,
That's
yes.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, last year alone, you served over 270 veterans. I mean, I just looked at the numbers, and the year before, 2020, very similar numbers. I imagine 2020, with that isolation that happened, the services that seemed to dry up overnight, access to mental health, recovery groups disappeared. I imagine 2020 hit our veteran population uniquely. Did you folks see that? I know you were both kind of new in 2020. What did you see walking into a whole new world for our veterans?
Well, what I saw was just a fantastic response during COVID. You know, it seemed to me that operations did not slow down at all. We just, it's like a military nomenclature. We just adjusted fire, and we transitioned. We were still able to communicate with veterans in the field. Outreach team was still working within COVID guidelines. It was really incredible. We also had an emergency response during that same time. We had a large fire in Lane County.
That's right.
Displaced many families, and we were able to, you know, with Zach's help, Foster's help, able to find an emergency shelter for veteran families, get them in the program, start looking for housing. And in fact, one of the success stories we promoted last month was one of those veterans.
Yeah, our newsletter, we had a gal, her child that suffered the loss during the fire that we were able to support very uniquely during that time frame. That's cool. I think there was some unique funding that came through. We were able to leverage and really support veterans to a next level. What did that look like?
Yeah, I was just talking about this yesterday actually. Kudos to John Kuhn and the National SSVF leadership team for seizing the day. It was they really went out there, procured some funding. We were able to operate what we call emergency housing assistance. So here that took the form of hotel rooms. So we were able to get at-risk 60-plus year veterans out of congregate shelter living situations and into hotel rooms, which then we treated as transitional housing. The VA, the HUD-VASH team was able to refer veterans our way, and we put a lot of money into the community. We had a couple different pots, so to speak, of CARES funding come through. So we expanded that. In the fall of 2020, as the forest fire was creeping towards town, and everything was crazy, they created a brand new healthcare navigator position, first time in the history of the SSVF grant. And that person doesn't provide direct healthcare services, but it's supposed to be the connecting file to healthcare services in the area, whether it's public or private or VA. Since then, we've branched into, now we have legal services for enrolled veterans that can help reduce or eliminate barriers to obtaining or retaining housing. We stepped into the shallow subsidy service, which had been a pilot program that SSVF had rolled out to about a dozen kind of pilot grantees in high cost of living areas, so LA, Hawaii, Washington DC, Seattle. The numbers and the data that were generated from that were so good that they were able to petition for more funding, and now that's a national service that we're able to offer, where enrolled veterans that have demonstrated the ability to pay 50% of their rent can enter this child subsidy service for 2 years, get half the rent paid, and then work on just that long runway, as John Kinnan likes to call it. It really is a springboard. You know, I feel like it's a game changer because to me it's the difference in dealing in survivability. We're keeping the nostrils above the waterline versus thrivability, and this is truly this moves towards the thrivability piece.
That's amazing. So as hard and traumatic as 2020 was, it gave SSVF and the larger veteran services programs an opportunity to pivot, to apply more funding, to apply more services, and see it works. When we invest in these services, we get folks past just surviving, which it sounds like that was kind of the model for a while. We've got to keep you alive, to thriving, to actually stable, to working on that mental health, the addiction recovery, and then becoming sustainable in their own housing.
Absolutely. And I do want to double back and just give a shout out to the entire SSVF team during that time. At no point did we close up shop. We operated through the entire pandemic. And just because Melvin and Foster and I are the ones sitting here having the interview, the real work gets done on the team. That's outreach, that's case management, that's the healthcare navigator, housing navigator, that's the public and source benefit specialist, that's our compliance officer. So, you know, I personally always feel like we stand on the shoulder of giants. So the people that are out there doing the work operated all through COVID, following the guidelines and as safely as we could, and it worked out well. And to your point, when it felt like, you know, society was closing down, I think it meant a lot, especially for the veteran demographic. You know, especially the Vietnam generation that had already, you know, felt like they'd had backs turned on them at one point, to know that, like, no, we're still out here. You know, sure, I got a thing over my face and I'm got a hand sanitizer holster that I'm, you know, wiping my hands down with every 30 seconds, but I'm out here, I see you, we're still gonna help.
That's extraordinary. Not one day loss of service.
No, meanwhile, we increased shelter capacity through this effort for the general population, which I'm particularly proud of. And I think at one time, this team had 80 to 100 veterans in a motel.
3 different hotels.
3 different hotels, thank you, yes.
Wow, that transitional housing aspect, kind of used it as that.
Tabitha, this is such a great program here, and it's one of the reasons why I love working here for SSVF. When you're in the community working with veterans, there isn't a lot of resources, or at least there wasn't a lot of resources available to actively help somebody. You can come up with an action plan. We can brainstorm, but without funding, it's really hard to move from a tent into a housing unit. And this program just gives you so much flexibility to work with a veteran. It's incredible. For the case manager, it's an incredible experience. For the veteran, it's an incredible experience. Moving from living in a vehicle and very limited income, $800 of Social Security income, no ability to make income in the future because you can't return to the workforce. SSVF comes in, we're able to house, find other supports in the community through Homes for Good, a Section 8 voucher, the Shadow Subsidy program that we have. Now veterans in place and able to thrive from that point.
Extraordinary.
It's an incredible program. I love working for it, and I can't think of another agency that can give this much flexibility to a case manager to actively work with veterans. Now that's why everyone here on the team is here, is to help work with veterans.
That's extraordinary. It seems to be the St. Vincent de Paul model. We go above and beyond, and we are that safety net, and we pivot as community need changes. And just like Veteran Services, not one of our emergency services programs closed during 2020, and they expanded as well. So not one day loss of services for any of the humans that we served here at St. Vincent de Paul.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was my next shout out, was being underneath the St. Vincent de Paul umbrella. We rely on the other departments and the teams for a lot too, and it's always nice being able to pick up the phone and call Roxanne O'Brien or Michelle Pollard or Kayla, Ashley over at the stores, or, you know, maintenance or property management, Gayla in the warehouse, and just be like, this is what I need, this is what I'm looking for. Do you know who I go to? Are you the person? Or tell me who to call. And just the kind of the rapid response within the agency too. The forest fire was a great example in September 2020. Feel like we all enjoyed our Labor Day weekend, hot dogs, lawn games, and we, driving into work Tuesday morning, and it's like, oh, what's this? Is this fog? What is this? And it's like, oh no, it's fire, okay. And then it's like, oh, there's a fire coming towards town, and our program and the HUD-VASH program had actually housed a lot of veterans out right where that fire was coming down through, so we didn't end up using them, but we went to Charlie Harvey and we were like, hey, those big vans sitting in the parking lot, if we need to use those to help evacuate people, do we have access to those? And St. Vincent de Paul didn't even hesitate. They were like, we'll even throw a bus in. I was like, I didn't even know we had a bus. But, like we will move barriers. Like let's help the community out. So we offered up our services to the Red Cross and all the other emergency agencies that stepped in to help those displaced wildfire survivors out. So it's truly, we're part of a whole within the agency. We're part of a whole within the community, and it really does. I'm a big believer in it takes a village. So not only just within St. Vincent de Paul, but within Lane County. Our community partners, the Eugene Mission, Catholic Community Services, community supported shelters, you name it. It's an all-inclusive effort.
I love that was in my head exactly, it takes a village. You have the SVF village here, too many acronyms, sorry, which you have an amazing team. It's not a one-man, one-woman show, it takes the whole team. And you have the St. Vincent de Paul village, which we're all working together. You're calling storage, you're calling emergency services, you're calling property management. Then we have the community. It's not just St. Vincent de Paul alone against this issue. It's all of our community partners working together. So I love that you've said it out loud. It takes a village, and we are truly a part of an amazing village.
And even, and I would expand that out, or at least include too the individual, the volunteers, the donors. We sit here and we talk about how resource rich we are in terms of funding that's come down the pipe since 2020, but donors still play a huge hand in that as well, because we do have fairly black and white where it's you can pay for this, you can't pay for that. So having a donations account that we're able to access funding for stuff that comes up, because as everybody's aware, very often things don't fit neatly into black and white yes or no categories. There's always gray areas. There's always stuff where hey, I can't pay for that out of the grant. Melvin, a couple weeks ago, for a survivor, her veteran husband had just passed away, needed to pay a light bill to get the power, keep the power on. So can't get you into the program per our rule book. You still deserve services, in our opinion. You still deserve assistance. So we, paid that out of our donations account, kept the power on.
That's extraordinary.
Funerals, the VA is not as great as I would like them to be at assisting and covering, helping with veteran funeral expenses. So since I've been here, half dozen to a dozen times I think we've stepped in and helped with cremation costs or funeral home costs. Sometimes we get reimbursed on that, sometimes we don't. But just stuff like that.
Straight out of donations.
Straight out of donations. Tell me where the funeral home is, you're dealing with the loss of a loved one. Let us, bare minimum, let us take that off your mental and emotional plate. That's you got other stuff to worry about. You don't need to be worrying about invoices and bills and who's going to pay for this. You focus on what you need to focus on. So those are just a couple examples of why it's really important to have a donations account.
No, thank you for saying that. As generous as these grants and as wonderful as you mentioned, we're able to wrap around veterans as we never have before. It does not cover every cost. There are things outside of the rules of those grants that it's in our heart to help. That's a human being in need right there. How do we help that human? That comes from our donors, from our community. That's extraordinary.
We had a student veteran, it was kind of an oddball one, but it had a medical situation where they had to leave the area. Apparently didn't leave their car in the right UO parking lot and had racked up pretty high
Parking tickets.
fees, tickets, whatever you want to call it over there at the UO. But had gotten back, that was in that gap between semesters, so they didn't, the GI Bill was pretty much just going to cover their rent. So that was, again, that's a snowball moment, right? That's that one little thing can be the trigger, can start a cascade, because then you don't catch up, and then it snowballs. And then the next thing, you're dropping out of college, you're losing your housing, and so it's like, hey, they called in, we worked it out with whatever department at UO that handles that stuff, and we got that paid, and they're back on track. And as far as I know, doing their thing, using their GI Bill, but just kind of oddball stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's extraordinary, and that's not necessarily something the average community member is going to think, oh, you guys got the VA, SSVF, they got this covered. No, there are needs.
Right.
Our veterans have needs that are outside those grants, as generous as they are. So that community support, I think, is extended over the years to include houses. Am I remembering that correct, Foster, that folks have actually donated houses to one of our veteran housing programs?
Yeah.
How does that give you, I know it's a little bit outside of SSVF, but what is that? How does that work?
So we have the Veteran Housing Project, Grassroots, St. Vincent de Paul Initiative, and Terry McDonald and Ann Williams obtained houses during the recession in 2008, and then also worked with school districts who own the houses, and then we sign leases for them in hopes when the school district chooses to increase their facilities, they have the properties. Meanwhile, we lease the houses for $1 a year, and for veteran families who aren't quite ready for that permanent housing step, we're able to have a transitional housing to sort of build that rental history, do that credit repair before the home ownership or obtain the permanent housing. And yes, with that, we'll get presented with houses in which our department will pay the taxes and all the maintenance on, and then through the donation account for the Veteran Housing Project, we're able to fund a part-time case manager, someone who goes into the homes, does the budgets, works on what would you like to see yourself after 2 years, and change that trajectory.
That's beautiful.
Meanwhile, coordinate with the other VA programs.
So that's distinctly one of our programs that doesn't have these large grants supporting it. That's really completely community supported, not just in the donation of the home, but the taxes and the case management. Those are ongoing expenses that we're able to
Very much so.
Serve a very unique population.
Correct. And since we own and operate the properties, we're able to be much more adaptable when it comes to the tenant criteria selection, and really overcome those barriers. Otherwise, achieving that housing probably wouldn't be possible.
Part of that continuum of care, that full wraparound. Not everyone's ready for permanent placement, as you spoke about. And I believe there is an exciting new project in the works that is intended to honor Ann Williams, and it has to do with veteran housing. Could you expand on that one a little bit?
Yeah, sure. During the pandemic, the VA told all the grant per diem grantees that for their transitional housing, congregate living was no longer an option. The priority was to protect the health and safety of our nation's veterans, and then allocated or had a pot of funds in which grantees could apply for, and we as a department applied for the funds and was able to convert one of our existing properties into a 10-unit apartment complex.
Wow.
Single resident occupant units, no congregate living, out at in Santa Clara, and we're naming it Williams Place.
Aww.
in honor of her. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Meanwhile, that'll expand permanent housing within our vet lift community for veterans. So really excited about that project, and definitely I want to shout out to Kristen Carley for pulling me by the coattails and dragging me along this process. But
that's beautiful.
yeah.
Now, Kristen has been a part of many incredible affordable housing projects for St. Vincent de Paul. So to get to work on the Williams project, it's got to be full circle, especially for you to have that moment of honoring her here in this, something something she was passionate about.
Right.
That's extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate all of you taking the time. Did I forget anything? Any other shout outs you want to do before we say goodbye?
There's always something more.
I
we can
know,
talk
right?
about.
We're going to walk away and be like, darn it, I didn't
Well,
say it.
quick story. So as Zach, Melvin are navigating the COVID and the fires, Terry McDonald had a department head meeting here at the Lamb building, which used to be a thrift store.
That's right. We're sitting in what used to be a thrift store right
Right.
now.
And during COVID, we had to shutter some of our stores, and in Terry McDonald fashion, sort of halted the meeting and Foster, how about you move SSVF to the Lamb building? I'll extend a lease to you. And at that time, I'd only been in this position 6 months,
Right.
you know, and doing the work with Zach, passing the program, and so during that time, he extended a lease, and Zach and his compliance officer Lacey took it from there, and now we are sitting in the Veteran Service Building, a one-stop shop for everything veteran services. We minimized the exposure. We eliminated asking folks to run over town to receive services, so veteran families are able to present. And today we have the rapid rehousing program, the permanent supportive housing program, transitional housing, and then financial literacy with a large conference room in these 3 meeting rooms. And
All here in one spot.
all here in one spot. Thank you, Terry McDonald.
Right? It's
Yeah.
that pivot again,
It's-
right? It's that 2020 pivot. What do we need to do? And we did it.
And we did it.
We did it.
Which again's helped with service delivery. We're able to have clients in the building here. We're on West 11th. It's a main thoroughfare. There's a major bus stop right here on the corner. There's one across the street. Our community supported shelters is right across the street.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're where our people are at. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So veteran needing services Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5.
8:30 to 5. As we're working on getting some volunteer staff in here for the front desk. Got the front door locked by appointment only, so we are open for business. Just ring or knock. There's always somebody in the building running around, and we'll come let you in. And yeah,
So I'm hearing you need some volunteers.
I was gonna talk to you guys about that today.
Okay. Tell me, what kind of volunteers you looking for?
Somebody that's willing to listen and help get people plugged into other stuff in the community. So, I guess what I would envision for that, the VA uses them down at the healthcare center on Chad Drive. They got red vests on, and you're kind of the air traffic controller within the building, but also somebody that can sit down and, a lot of the times, a lot of the folks that we deal with, just a kind ear goes a long way. Just listening. In our society, we continue to stigmatize mental health and substance use, and so you don't get a lot of that out on the street. That somebody that will actually stop, listen, and that can go a long way. Even our BIPOC or LGBTQ veterans, the veteran identity carries a lot of weight in our country, but oftentimes not enough to offset the systemic issues, the inequalities and the racism. So it's an interesting confluence of identities where you can be a person of color, a person of these other marginalized communities, and having to navigate within that, where you're not immune to the housing discrimination or the affordable the healthcare and whatnot. So anyway, volunteers got off on a we could keep talking.
I know.
But volunteers, I think to me is just somebody that's willing to be kind, somebody that's willing to listen, and somebody that'll sit behind the desk over here on the other side of that camera, and as people walk up, let them into the building and figure out who they're here to meet with, and if they don't know who they're here to meet with, find them and
welcome and
Kindness,
listen.
empathy, warmth.
Kindness, empathy, and warmth. All right. Yeah, we'll find some volunteers. I bet you we've got some community members out there that are put me in, coach. So we'll get that on. I know you're looking for some team members as well. So there are many opportunities to be a part of the work here at SSVF, from volunteers to donors to employment opportunities. The work that you're doing is exciting and meaningful and so needed in our community. It's so wonderful for me to sit and hear how the last couple of years, which could have just wiped the slate, were actually a time of great innovation. And we have served more than ever before. We're positioned now to serve again even more than ever before, yet there is still great need in the community to continue to support these services.
Thanks to you for sitting down with us and getting that word out there. This is also, talking about pivoting. St.
Never done
Vincent
this
de Paul's
before.
pivoting. We've never done this. I believe you and Jack were saying this is the second one.
Second
so.
episode right here. Absolutely. We are a large organization, but our voice is not as large as who we are and what we're able to do. So that is definitely a priority for Jack and I on the community engagement team. How do we, and what you guys took the moment just now in this setting to talk about, I don't think our supporters have ever had the opportunity to hear this. So getting your voices out there, that's why it's called Vinnie's voice. It's not a one-person voice, it's all of us and what we do. Just like the folks we serve have a voice and we want to hear that. We need our supporters to hear all of those voices. And you are the conduits through which our supporters can hear the voice of those in need. And with your experience working with those folks, your lived experience and experience in the field of social services, you can speak from a place of experience that nobody else can. So thank you for taking this time, for talking about yourselves, talking about the work you do, talking about the humans we serve. Your excitement is palatable, and I hope it translates across the screen or to the ears of folks that are listening, because there's only more room to grow as we continue to adapt. Need's not going away.
No,
Need is
sad
not
to
going
say.
away. Any other thoughts for the good of the order?
Melvin,
No other thoughts?
you want to sing the Army's anthem, or do you want to?
I do not remember that. So.
It's all right. We'll put you on the spot to sing. It's okay.
It's okay. Later.
Next time.
Next
Right,
time, I'll have to spend some time to practice.
Okay, deal.
Yeah.
Maybe we can all have an equal, some part of that, all be on the stage together.
We'll work on a dance routine.
There you go.
That way, when we do the St. Vincent de Paul talent show, we got something to.
Exactly.
Yeah. The SSVF team.
Yeah.
Go team.
Got pom poms and all.
Beautiful. Thank you all. Thank you for coming in early. Thank you for having these conversations, and thank you for the work you do.
Yeah.
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 Thank
Thank
you.
you.